So I'm about 90% of the way through the interview process for the next group of interns. And we have kind of a who wants to be a millionaire style questioning thing that gets, starts with a really easy one and works its way up. And what's interesting is the warm-up ones are, people get it, so what does glute max do, and everyone's across it to some extent. And the hard question is about sprint technique. And so it's if you had one card to play, if you could only change one technical variable to make the greatest improvement in your cohort of athletes, what would your one spend be? Yeah, one thing. And to me, it's the easiest and most obvious thing there could be, which is that you want to take people from doing a heel strike and or a flat strike or a toe strike. You want to make everyone suddenly do a nice dorsiflexed midfoot strike under the center of mass to get that spring forward and move beautifully. Yeah, so you got that sprung loaded foot on the midfoot underneath the body, under the center. No decelerative force, just spring forward. And it's interesting that you've got, we've had 40 something interviews, and I've had one person get it right, and they happen to be a customer of ours. So
I certainly hope they would.
So that doesn't count. So literally zero people where I would think was the single biggest rock for enhancing linear acceleration, and that they're missing that thing. And everyone gets so caught up in all the answers, the arm action, this, and then you can take it even further where people are like running with parachutes and doing
sleds
this, and all these highly complicated things. But no one's attending to that fundamental of, how is your foot? Is it springy or soggy when it strikes the ground, and where is it striking the ground in relation to your body? And it's really interesting how that gets missed. You're a research student. How do you think it gets? How is it that we don't have that?
I'm not sure how we get missed, but let's talk a bit about the actual sprint theory and why midfoot is such an important thing before we get into the nuances of uni. Mike Young, the Global Performance Summit, all those lectures they had not very long ago, amazing thing. They just did all these amazing people, Dan John, Nick Winkelman, Dean Somerset, all these guys doing this presentation. The one I found the most fascinating was I think it's Mike Young from California, doing a presentation on sprint mechanics. And we often hear in uni that sprinting and speed is a product of your stride frequency, how many steps you take, versus stride length.
Yeah, maths equation. Yeah.
Yes and no. The reason they're falling out of love with that is that if you take longer strides in your accelerated phase, you'll actually slow it down because you're reaching and you're creating that heel strike. So what's more important is actually called the sprint unification theory, which is more force in a shorter ground contact time in the right direction. So you put more force into the ground, but do it in a shorter time, so a shorter contact time. And then if you do it in the right direction, which is the midfoot strike, that is what gives you stride length and stride frequency. So you don't want to teach your athletes, just go faster and longer, because it'll take them out of their good positions. When you accelerate, you want a little bit longer contact time to break inertia and get more momentum up. And so that midfoot strike is all about that right direction, putting that force in the ground in the right direction with that loaded foot.
And I think that's really key to that focus on acceleration, not top speed, because that acceleration is the money-making quality. It's the one that's going to get you to the ball, get you away from an opponent, get you away from a contest or to a contest. It's the thing. The ability to hold top speed is lovely, but ultimately winning or evading opponents, they're a big part of it.
Chaotic sports are all won and lost in those 5 metre bursts. You look at football, but football fields are massive. But there's no point being able to run the wing if you couldn't get the first clearance.
If you got tackled straight away.
If you couldn't make that first separation, it's useless. You see a lot in sports like basketball, football and soccer, where you've got a lot of players in a small area, and you have to work hard. You've got to make that first step, otherwise your top speed, you never get to use your top speed. So acceleration mechanics is so important, which is where the midfoot comes in, because if you're on your heel and you're creating a lot of braking forces, you're not really getting into your stride.
Which we see, and I feel like it's under-acknowledged. Like you video 100 athletes, you'll see a whole bunch of them. And I mean, our group is biased. We see more basketballs and other sports. And basketballs wear big cushiony shoes, so there's a bit of a bias there. But even so, when we've had footy teams come through, you still see
soccer boys we had as well. They were pretty average.
It's a very strong bias towards a flat or a mid strike, flat or a heel strike.
And so it's that tendency to want to, and it comes from glute inactivity and a whole bunch of other stuff, but it's that tendency to want to reach as opposed to push.
Reach and pull through with the hammy rather than push with the glute.
Exactly. So sprinting is all about getting that little bit of a lean and then pushing the ground away, creating that momentum.
So we had a kid in yesterday, very young, with the typical big
Slapping the ground.
yeah. And I had her take her shoes off and do some light sprint work in barefoot, and immediate improvement. Like it was beautiful. In a perfect world, I think you'd take every athlete and do some barefoot work with them, so they can actually feel where their midfoot is and get a sense of the springiness of their calf complex minus the impediment of all the cushioning that kind of dulls that effect, I suppose.
Yeah. Let's segue a little smoothly here.
Yeah.
If we're talking about sprint mechanics and acceleration, so midfoot strike is the number one. That's the lead dominant. Get that right, everything tends to follow.
Yeah.
If we're looking at acceleration, 0 to 5 meters, what other factors do we need to be considering, or should we be looking for as coaches with our athletes? What other stuff do you think is, if you start from midfoot up?
Yeah. Okay.
Where would you go?
So midfoot's the very first thing. I think then you're looking at body angle.
Yeah.
So, because it's all very well having that lovely midfoot, but if your body is angled to upright,
you're leaning back.
Yeah. So I think it goes midfoot, body angle.
Which acceleration is quite different to top speed. You want that little bit of a forward angle, but you don't want it from the hips. You don't want to be hinging and bowing,
folding.
It needs to be ankle to shoulder straight line, and then pushing on that forward.
Nick Winkelman, amazing sprint coach, worked with Exos and
one of the best. Yeah,
one of the best, and worked particularly in preparing people for the combine, the NFL combine. So his thing was if he can make someone point something % faster, they earn an extra $5 million a year.
Yeah, insane. High stakes.
And his thing was head to heel, strong as steel was his catchy American thing. But it was that idea of through here and just absolutely straight.
Yeah. Nice. So midfoot strike under the body.
Yep.
Nice forward angle through the body.
So that strike can pay off, so it can propel you forwards. And then I think that nice arm action, like a good arm action to get that the knee drive, so you can actually get the knee high enough to push into the ground hard.
Because the arms drive the legs.
Yeah. And we see so many people who they just don't get much foot clearance, and it's like they're just tickling the ground. So
pitter-patters.
You want to get enough drive to actually get a bit of force into the ground.
And you don't want to think too much about the actual knee drive. If you focus on the arm drive, that will feed the legs.
Yeah.
So
people who are overly focused on knee drive end up just kind of prancing.
High knee running. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not actually getting that power. So I think. We've experimented with lots of cues with arm action, and with mixed success. It's tricky to coach, I reckon. But I do like. I'm increasingly liking to throw the spaghetti at the wall.
Yeah.
I think that's good because when too many times if you overly cue arm action, you get people who are kind of like.
Yeah, and there's kind of like training a bit as well.
They're not really
training.
That flick.
It's all about throwing it back.
I think that's actually an ASCA one. I think Dan Baker might be the one that I heard of. I don't remember. But it's probably been around for a long time. It's probably not.
I think I heard it on Strength Coach podcasts as well. Yeah. So a bunch of places.
Yeah, so I think if you get those things right, if you get the foot position, get the angle, get a nice arm action,
that will kind of feed everything else.
Yeah, and then still the cherry on top, but also the foundation simultaneously, is that springy position in the foot. So just practicing spring, because you can do everything else right, but you can still kind of robot your way through it. Whereas if you get that nice
bounce and reactivity,
I think you put that into it, and then you're laughing.
Yeah. Once you've got all that, I'm going to add a cherry on top of your cherry. Sorry to steal your cherry. Is that with that piston-like action? Once people have got that and they're getting good shapes, the cue I find that works the best is short, choppy steps.
Yeah.
Because if you get these people, they're putting it in the right spot. If you teach them, if you cue them and give them the idea of short, reactive steps, choppy steps, they really start accelerating, and actually they feel easier but faster. And they finish a run, they turn around, and they go, "What was that?"
Yeah.
And it's like, short, choppy, get lots of steps in fast, so you can break that inertia.
Particularly,
and momentum.
I think those first 5-6 steps, they've really got to be thinking short ones.
Bang, 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 bang. Yeah.
Tom Mard, basketball coach, did an exceptional job coaching that. He didn't have much of the other technical stuff. He would just say, make sure your first few steps are short and choppy. And if you're 80-20ing, that's actually a really good thing to throw in, because even if they're using their not very good technique, they're still getting better benefit out of their not good technique just by shortening it up.
More steps means they can break that inertia, get more momentum faster.
Should we put some video showing the foot strike thing? Or
I'm going to share a link to the 3 simple running drills.
Yes.
That one I did a while ago, that short video we did with a few
My
runners.
favourite soundtrack.
I love that song. But yeah, that had piston run, had double leg springs, arm action, and the soggy versus sprung.
Yeah, perfect.
So that'll encapsulate everything we just talked about.